So, Furiosa is just around the corner. So it's time to go back and look back at the original Mad Max film that started this franchise. Let's do it.
Mad Max, the maximum force of the future.
So, Mad Max, the original film that started this franchise, came out in 1979, 1980, I believe, in the United States. And this was the movie that kick-started a brilliant franchise that is full of insanity, full of blood, full of gore, full of psychoticness, full of characters who are unhinged, full of the end of the world vibes. It's just a brilliant franchise that we all love. Like, let's be real. Now, this is the movie that kick-started it, right? So, when you go back and look at movies like the original Mad Max that came out in 79 and in 80, you need to take it into context when you are looking at this film. Now, obviously, we have movies like Fury Road, which we're going to get to in this series, that are just blow your mind visually. When you see that on the biggest screen possible, it is just a delight. And I think Furiosa is going to be the exact same by the trailers. It looks insane. Now, when you go back and watch the original Mad Max, you're going to see a huge difference, I should say, when you are comparing that movie to Fury Road. Now, back then, they didn't have the technology that we had now. So they don't have these big CGI crashes, these big CGI explosions. They couldn't do that. So when you are watching this one, if you're someone that didn't grow up with 80s movies, or pre-80s, or 90 movies, and even early 2000s, you would probably think, oh, the editing style of this movie, it's kind of weird because it chops from the car running into someone, chops right there, to everyone just falling off their bikes. Like, it's not this insane explosion like we are used to in like a Fast and Furious, in like Fury Road, in the Batman, in those type of movies. We just can't do that anymore. Back then, there was no technology that allowed them to do that. So when you are looking at this movie, you got to take it into the context of the time period it was made. So when you are looking at the editing choices, the way that it's cut, the shots, they're not going to be as good looking and as fluent as you would expect in a movie in today's society, because we just didn't have that sort of ability. So if you took Fury Road and you went, hey, back then, and went, look, we're going to make a movie like this. This is what's going to happen. This is what it's going to look like. People back then would say to you, that ain't possible. There's just no way you can do that. But here we are. We have that technology to do it. So when you look at this one, what I loved about this is a brilliant start to the franchise, because the Mad Max universe is huge. And once you get into Road Warrior, Beyond the Thunderdome, Fury Road, you just see the world expand. You just see how psychotic, how insane, how unhinged everyone is. Now, this is a world where the most precious resource is oil, is fuel. That is what everyone is vying for. So the world is starting to collapse. And you see these rogue groups as you progress in the Mad Max franchise. You see what they become and just see how feral people can become. It's pretty insane. And it just gets bigger and bigger. But this one is just, it's a down-to-earth story where it's a smaller scale. And I think that is perfect for a first movie, especially when you're dealing with a franchise like Mad Max. You want to start small and then expand the universe, the lore, and really dive into other characters. Now, this one is a personal story of Max, who is played by Mel Gibson. Man, he looks young in this movie. It's just crazy when you see him in this movie and how young he looks. But you see this character in Max, who is part of the federal police. If there is any police in Mad Max, there really isn't, but they try their best to be. And they are basically always on the road in these cars, these muscle cars. And I'll tell you what, Mad Max's car is, that Mad Max car is so sexy, man. It looks gorgeous. That comes later on in the film. But they are driving these cars, and you get this opening sequence of this car chase sequence where they're chasing down the Knight Rider, as he calls himself. And it's this fun time where you're watching these people. And what I love about the Mad Max franchise is it doesn't shy away from anything. Like, we see a lot of death in the Mad Max franchise, and it's not just adults. There are kids that die in here, and this is the movie where they actually killed a kid in it. They actually killed, because this isn't a fairy tale story. This isn't a happy ending story in this movie. This is about Max turning into Mad Max, and there's a reason why he gets mad, and that's because he loses his wife and his baby. Like, the baby's already been born too. So that is what triggers him to go down this dark path. And that's what this is. This is about a tragic story about a guy who tries to do the right thing by becoming someone that is trying to keep the world a safer place as much as possible. But then when he gets the realization that he is starting to fear because people close to him are meeting fates that he does not want to see him or his family get, this is when he starts to second guess whether or not he should be a part of the federal police and actually commit to try and do it, or just step away, be with his family, and, try and live a peaceful life as possible. Of course, in this world, that never happens. So we have Max, this beautiful opening sequence of this chase, destruction everywhere. Obviously, it's not to the level that we get now, but it's still awesome. And there's a lot of things that happen in this. I love it. I just love the Mad Max franchise. I really do. Then we get introduced to Goose, who is sort of like Max's best friend. And something happens to Goose in this movie where him and Max bring someone in from the Nomad biker group, who are the ones going around terrorizing everyone. And they bring him in. And obviously he gets let free because there's no charges. They don't have anything to hold him there. And they then go after Goose. And this is where Goose meets a fatal death. Well, he's not really dead, is he? And he's not dead in this movie, but he might as well be, because he's in the car, it crashes, they make it crash, and then they light it and they burn him. And this is where Max goes in. This is the catalyst for Max to actually realize, maybe this isn't the job that I should be doing, because it's going to come back to me. And remember, in this movie, he's already threatened by the Nomad group that they know who he is and that they want revenge because he killed the Knight Rider, who's part of their group. So you have Goose, who we don't see because, again, they don't have the technology and the effects to be able to do someone that is just rinsed head to toe in burn marks. You see the hand, but imagine, like, they didn't have the budget either. This was only like, what, 350k, I think it was, this budget, something like that. So it wasn't a huge budget. So they didn't have that to be able to do all this stuff to make someone look like that. But nevertheless, you see the face, and then you see Mad Max's face when he looks at it. Max then decides, okay, that's not Goose anymore. And this is where he starts to believe, like, I need to leave. So he leaves. He gets out of there. He goes on, a holiday. But, of course, the Nomad group are there, and they run into his wife and kid, and she don't want a piece of them. When you meet this Nomad group, you just see how bad-mannered, how unhinged they are, how they don't give a shit about anyone else but themselves. It's beautifully performed. Like, there's not too much detail to them to why they do all this stuff. They just do it because they can. Like, they're just those type of villains. You're supposed to hate them. And when they do the horrible thing that they do, you are rooting for Max to just do anything and everything to them. But when you introduce them, you see just how bad they are when they're at that town and what they do to people. And you don't actually see anything, but it's implied that they do stuff to people. And you see it in that particular scene. But then when you see them go after Max's wife, and then they follow up, and then this is where they go to the farm where Max is with his family trying to relax, and they start to chase down the wife and kid. And this is where the car breaks down and they start running on the road. They all come and they drive straight past the old lady, straight towards Jesse, and they run over the kid and wife. That's what they do. Max comes running down the road and he sees that, and that is the trigger for Max becoming unhinged, becoming one of them. Like, he makes a reference in this movie as well about the longer I stay on the road, the more I become like them, the more I become insane up here, and I just become an animal almost on the road. So that's another reason why he wants to step away. He doesn't want to lose his sanity. But now, after this, a tragic event that happens, you then get Max, and you're sitting there and you're like, Max, whatever you do, I 100% am on board with you. 100% on board with you. And this is like the original John Wick. You know, we saw the dog die in John Wick and we're like, ooh, man, John, do whatever you want. This was the original one. This was like, yo, Max, you have my permission to do anything and everything in your power to make their lives miserable, because they deserve it. Now, you obviously don't see the kid dead again. That can be a bit much for people. So I understand why they didn't choose that and they didn't show the mother and son dead on the road. That would be a bit too much. And again, they probably didn't have the technology and the budget and that to be able to do that. So, but then with this is where we get introduced to the sick ass car, man. It's so gorgeous. Look at it, the black, the engine. When it roars, that V8, it sounds incredible. So Max goes on a killing spree. He goes on a killing spree. We see Mad Max for the first time. The black leather, the shotgun, the double barrel shotgun, and he goes after them. And he cops a beating. He gets shot in the knee. His knee gets blown out. And then he gets his arm run over. But it doesn't stop him, because this is a guy that wants to kill him. And he does. And we see someone run into a truck. They die, tragically, in that, which was, you know, it's not as insane as we get now, but it was still insane at the time. I remember seeing it for the first time and going, holy moly, that man got smoked. And then we get the moment where the guy that Goose brought in, who actually burnt Goose, runs someone off the road, trying to steal their shoes. Max goes up to him, gets the handcuffs on his leg, on his foot, puts him up against the car, and then basically goes into full Jigsaw mode. I want to play a game with you. This car will ignite in less than 5 minutes. Now you have a saw there. You can cut through your chains. That will take 10 minutes. But if you cut through your leg, you will be able to escape with your life. And of course he doesn't do that. He explodes and gets burned and everything. And it's sweet, because it's like, bro, they did it to Goose, and now they ran his family over. I'm okay with it. So, and that's where it ends. It ends with him driving off, and we're going to look at Road Warrior next. And just a little heads up, Road Warrior is my favorite Mad Max movie. I love Road Warrior. I remember seeing it for the first time. I cannot wait to talk about it, because I love that movie so much. But the first Mad Max does a great job at showcasing you the world and what the potential of it could be and where it could go. It gives you the arc of Max and why he becomes the way he is. Why does he go on the road and want to hunt all these groups and do that stuff? Because of the tragic that happened to him. Mad Max is a franchise that doesn't shy away from tragic. This is not a story of heroes. This is a story of a tragic character who lost everything and is now becoming mentally unstable like everyone else in the world. So I like this one. I think it's great. Like, for the time period, again, it's fantastic. Like, you gotta remember, back then, this is a movie that was just like, when you watch it for the first time back then, you're like, this is freaking sick. And then they build upon it with the next one. So, but for me, Mad Max, I like it. I do. So let me know what you guys think of the original Mad Max. Do you guys like it? Smash it down in the comment section below. Smash that like button. Click subscribe. And I'll see you guys next video. Until then, stay safe and peace out.